Hi, this is Chris Pells. In this video, you'll see how to create a custom health monitoring event for use in your application where you have to record information that's not typically found in one of the standard web events used for health monitoring. After we create the custom event, we'll also see how to raise it in your web application. So let's get started. We need to create a class library project which will contain our custom event. We'll create a class library project in Visual Basic. We'll call it hdi.web.management, and we'll put it in the VB sample code folder that comes with this video. So the first thing we're going to do is add a reference to our project because we need to have system.web. Then we'll add a few import statements to our class. The first one we're going to add is system.web.management. And that's the namespace that contains a lot of the classes for health monitoring. We'll also add system.web. And we're going to add system.text. Now let's rename our class to custom web request event. Now we want to have our class inherit from the web request event, which is in the system web management namespace, and this is the base event for the web request events in health monitoring. So the first thing we need to do is to create two different constructors for our custom web request event class. And in the first one, we're going to take inbound a message as a string, an event object as object, and the event code as an integer. Then we're going to call the base class constructor, and we're going to pass the message event object and event code. And let me just change this variable name to source so it matches the one that's in the base class, and that may be a little more clear to you when you look at the sample code here. So then the next thing we want to do is to create a custom message in our constructor. And we're going to use that later on, so we're going to create a class-wide variable to store that, so we'll call that private message created as string. And then we're going to go down in here and let's add something to that message. And we will say event created at, and we will substitute into that the event time to string, and this is a property of the base web request event class. So that looks good for our first constructor, and as I said, we have to create two of these because there's two potential constructors that may come inbound to the web request event base class. So I'm just going to copy and paste, and we're going to add a few things to this class. The second constructor gets an additional parameter called event detail code as an integer. And then down here in calling the base constructor, we pass the fourth parameter of the event detail code. And we'll leave this created message, which we also want in the second constructor. So the next thing we want to do is to override the raise method, which is where we'll record the custom information for our event. So we'll say public overrides raise. And we want to record some custom information right here before we call the base raise method. And what we want to do is to add another custom message. So I'm going to create a class-wide variable because we're going to use this information a little later on in another method. And we'll call that message raised. Now we're going to go down here into our raise method and let's create that message. So we'll say message raise, and we'll set that equal to string format. And what we're going to say is event raised at, and then we're going to substitute in the time that the event was raised. And we'll get that from the event time property of the base class, and we'll convert that to a string. So that should be enough information for our custom event. And here in this raise method is where you want to put any custom information that you would like to have in your own custom event. Now the next method that we need to implement has to do with formatting the event information. And we're going to override another event in the base class. So we'll say public. And we're going to override the format custom event details method. So rather than call the base class, we're going to add in some of our own formatting. So we're going to say formatter, which comes in from the base class. Let me just scroll to the right so you can see that. And that is an instance of the web event formatter, which is part of the health monitoring set of classes. And this is provided so that you can format the output of your custom event. So the first thing we're going to do is add a blank line to separate our custom information a little bit in the output. So we'll say string.empty. And let me just scroll this up so it's a little easier to see. So we'll do that. And now we want to add some custom information. So we're going to say formatter.append line. And we'll put 3 stars and we'll say start of custom event information. And let me just copy that because down at the end we're going to put a similar line and we're going to say end. Now in here we're going to display our 2 custom messages that we created up above. So we'll append a line, and the first one will be with the message created, and the second one will be with the message raised. So this will add a little section to the event information whenever this event is called, which shows a little block of our custom event information. So when you create your own custom event, this is where you would want to put any formatting that you feel is appropriate for your event information. So those are the steps that we need to do to instantiate our custom event, record some information in those constructors about when the event was created, and then also record some information whenever the event is raised, and finally how to format the event information when the provider requests that it be written.